Ready? Sure. Good evening, everyone. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to our September Planning Board meeting. Just for the record, Planning Board member Spano will be here a little bit later. He's got a conflict, but he will be here shortly. Okay, committee reports. Adoption of the minutes from July 26th, 2022. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes?
No.
We entertain a motion to accept.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 3040 Westchester Avenue, one-year site extension. Is there someone here that wants to speak on this? Steve? Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Stephen Rabel. I'm with the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout, here on behalf of Westchester Avenue Associates, LLC. As we detailed in our letter, we're requesting a one-year extension of site plan and slope permit approvals. As I'm sure you saw in our letter, there was a letter of intent signed by a potential tenant for the building. My client is poised to commence construction as soon as the lease is signed. Unfortunately, WestMed was recently purchased by a larger company that is conducting its own internal review of the lease agreement, which has delayed the signing of the lease. So construction is not likely to start by the expiration date, and we are here asking for a one-year extension of those approvals.
Any questions? Anybody? Have a motion to
I'll make a motion that we grant the one-year extension.
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
7 Purdy Street, second floor, change of use. One-year amended site plan extension, one-year special exception use exception. Anyone here? Just talk to us about that. Mr. Carnevale? You had a lot more hair the last time I saw you.
I do. A little grayer. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. James Carnevale here for 7 Purdy Street, where we are requesting a one-year extension on our approvals as well. We're just involved with another project right next door, and we haven't started our construction yet. So we'd like a one-year extension.
Any questions? Anyone? Motion?
I'll motion for one-year extension.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 1, Yao subdivision. So this is going to be, we're going to open the public hearing and then close the, and then adjourn the public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we're still waiting to hear from the DEC.
So I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second,
I'll second.
I'll move to close the public hearing, or to adjourn.
to
Vote
adjourn.
first.
All those
sorry.
all those in favor?
Aye.
And then I'll
Second.
motion to.
I'll second.
To adjourn till the October meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So, Morgan Stanley Parking Garage, solar carports. Same thing tonight? Public hearing?
Hi, good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Chris Fisher with Cuddy and Theater on behalf of the applicants. A couple of things to bring you up to date since our public hearing, which was in March. We've been working really closely with the building department and Purchase Fire District to go over the plan, address a number of the elements in the plan, and I've provided correspondence to the board detailing how we've been able to address some concerns that were raised and ensure that the project is code compliant with the New York State Uniform Fire Building Code, Prevention Code. So we're in good shape, we think, on our application overall before the board, but there is one issue that has come up, and it's an issue I think that's actually of townwide importance at this point. So we need some direction from the board, probably some assistance from staff to have the conversation with maybe not even just the Purchase Fire District, but townwide on this question. And it really relates to fire suppression in these open-air parking structures where you're going to do solar above. With respect to the code doesn't require it. The fire district has talked about it and asked for it in response to the application. The concern is that because these projects are already incentivized at a state level in order to be able to address the economics, the cost factor for that it actually puts the project into a position of whether it's even viable. And to give you a sense, I asked the client what the cost is, and it's Just for that, it's about 50% of the overall equipment cost that would even go into this whole solar facility. So it's substantial. It's not a small matter where we can just simply say yes. And it doesn't just affect this project. It really affects any other project that might be done like this for community solar above a parking garage, whether municipal or private. We shared with you how White Plains addresses the issue. It's not actually required, and how White Plains has done this type of construction over its own municipal garages. So we really need some direction and assistance. You're not in a position, as I understand, to vote on it, which is fine. We'll need to adjourn, but we thought we'd appear and raise the issue because it's not just about our project as well.
Just a quick question. 2 seconds. Remind me, this design is different than the others that we've approved, though. It's a complete roof, right? Which is a different, and that's what's triggering this. Am I correct? And the others wouldn't because they're more open air.
They were smaller scale, and some of it were at grade. This is the parking structure. It's not, there are gaps in the actual solar panels for ventilation, so, and that addresses code, but because of the scale of it, I think that's what's raising this question
So
at
they're
the
worried
district.
about the fire being trapped underneath.
Yes, and even,
Yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, so then, Chris, you'll reach out to staff and to the town attorney or the village
And
attorney
we'll
to...
facilitate that,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman,
okay.
with Chris.
And there's no cost-effective way, I mean, that would also provide the kind of capture of energy the solar panels capture, doing it a different way, more with an open design?
the design itself, does go into the overall capacity of the system, right, in terms of the solar collection for energy and how that costs out, both for capital costs and return on investment, obviously. The design itself has incorporated these gaps, as I said, in between the panels, so even though it looks like a full, complete roof, it's not. So there is ventilation that will occur, and the sides are all open, so it's an open-air structure.
But there's just no way you could do this similar to the others that we've approved.
No, not on this type of structure. And then what happens, and this is more of a town policy consideration, if you can't do it over the parking structures, which is really what the state, and I think county and likely town would like to see, it drives the impact towards doing greenfield sites for community solar. So where, you may be looking at
No,
tree
that's
clearing and things like
horrible.
that.
Yeah.
So
no.
we're trying to figure out, and as you can imagine from Morgan Stanley, this is an ESG initiative, not just a Brightcore question. So we're pretty much supportive of the project, and we want to find a way to make it happen.
Why can't the solar companies anticipate this and include the fire suppressant in the design itself and make it affordable for you?
It's the overall cost. It's simply the cost of fire suppression, sprinklering of a system like that.
No, I understand, but it seems to me the solar companies should be figuring this out.
That goes to their cost, and what happens is, once they cost it out, it becomes not viable to do the project. That's where we are.
That just sounds counterintuitive to me. Sorry. I think they should make it affordable somehow. I mean, the technology's got to be, can't be that complicated.
What we'd be talking about at that, then it would become a statewide issue of concern. We'd be talking about a code change and a way to incentivize the cost of recovery for that. That's where we would be.
Maybe that's what it has to be.
It could end up there. We'd like to move forward with the project, but
No,
if we
I
can,
understand, I understand. But it does seem like implications are pretty big, and it's an interesting problem. I don't think you guys should, have to, I don't think that should be the question. Parking garage versus open air fields, that's just mind-boggling to me. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
If you could just put us on for next month, but we'll try to work this out in the meantime, and if we need further adjournments, we understand.
Anybody else? Comments?
So we have a public hearing, so open.
Open and adjourn. Okay, motion to open a public hearing.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn the public hearing to the October meeting.
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 3, Purchase Land Subdivision. You have a motion to open the public hearing.
Again, Mr. Chairman, they've requested an adjournment.
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 131 Adelphi Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Steve Domofsky. I'm with Domofsky Architecture. Vito Di Matteo, he's the owner of the property, developer. So we were here back in July for the same property. We did get some engineering comments after the meeting, and we did address those back in July, we did address the comments and resubmitted our drawings to the town engineer. And we just got comments back very recently. And some of the comments that we're looking at, we feel shouldn't stop us from hopefully getting an approved favorable vote from the board. I just want to go over the comments that we just received. I'm not sure if the board has received the comments also.
We got it.
So, provide a surveyor's subdivision plat for the review. I think that usually happens, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, after the approval of the public hearing?
So again, I think that the engineers requested it prior to that in this case, so he's asking for it.
Right, he's asking for it, but it's to the point where we have to engage people to do the surveys, and if he has any other comments, it's really not practical to,
Plat wouldn't change, the plat's just a line on the drawing, in a 50 by 100 foot lot, that's not going to change. The improvement plans that we're talking about, that's where the change may occur.
yeah, I mean, just as the way we normally operated, it was, in the past, it was done after the fact. I understand.
Yep.
Okay. Show a proposed curb line consistent with the full frontage of the property. We didn't, the drawing that the engineer had put together did not show that. However, it did have a note indicating it. And, it's pretty clear that the note to carry the curb line over. And that's our intent to take care of that and have that done per his request. The third comment was one that we just like to talk about a little bit, and that's the driveway slopes and garage floor elevations do not appear to be in accordance with the town standard. Therefore, the proposed houses appear to be shown artificially elevated up to 1.5 feet higher than that would be acceptable. This does not meet our current standard, and it would exacerbate the,
Exacerbate.
yeah, exacerbate, sorry, thanks. Just making sure everybody's paying attention. The visual overall height of the house, especially in relation to other houses. So if we look at that section of the code, the section of the codes, and I'm not going to read the whole section, I'm just going to paraphrase it a little bit. It says, and this is 335-33.3.b.d, B.6B1, where the existing ground elevation at the rear property line is below or less than 7 vertical feet above the existing ground elevation at the front of the property, which is our case, we exceed that. The driveway and off-street parking shall extend into the parcel at a negative gradient and a gradient of 9%, thereby superseding 2533 3E, which is basically tells us that we have to be 2 feet below the street level line. The drawing that was presented to the town engineer and shown graphically on the drawings, the driveway is a negative 9 slope. So that would not require us to go to the negative 2 feet in relation to the property. I mean, this zone is adjacent to a flood zone. It's like 2 blocks away. And anything that we can do to keep the house elevated or out of the, out of going 2 feet down into the ground would definitely help, because that area does flood. It's known to flood. And us going down 2 feet, we're actually, we're doing a house in the neighborhood on Nelson Avenue, very close, and we're almost at the base flood elevation. Yeah, this is in the, and we're almost, with this going down 2 feet, we're going to be lower than what's required as the base flood elevation build in that flood zone.
So what you're saying, so Mike is saying that you're 1.5 feet high after you, but you don't have to lower it. You're saying you don't
We
have
don't
to lower.
have to lower it
You don't
because
have to
we
lower.
meet the negative 9%
Right.
on our driveway slope. And that slope goes from the property line. It's not from the curb line as described in this section. It's from the property line that goes down to, you know, when you have the driveway sloping down, you have the trench drain in front there. So our -9 goes right from there to that lowest point, the -9. You can't have it go right to the garage door because you want to have the water pitching away from the house slightly, right? So on a drawing, on the engineer's drawings, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, because he had another commitment, but he clearly has on his drawings, it's -9.
So Steve, listen,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but none of us up here,
I know.
I don't believe are engineers.
I know.
So, you need to work it out with Mike. If what you're saying makes sense to me,
Totally.
but.
Have you talked to Mike
Yeah.
about it?
We just got this,
They just got it.
we just got this about an
Right.
hour ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe ask Mike about that a little bit. Makes sense.
Sure.
I've been developing for 18 years.
Name, please.
Vito Di Matteo.
Thanks.
I just want to point out the cascade events, and I wanted to go on record that it's almost getting to the point where it's so frustrating as a professional to work in this town. We submitted in June. He gave us comments 2 hours prior to the meeting in June. So we have a deadline to submit almost 2 weeks ahead of the meeting, so he should be able to review those plans and provide comments so we can prepare for the meeting, which is fine. Then we addressed all of his comments. He prior to the July meeting, they didn't provide a memo saying, just show me the curb line. This is the same set of plans that he just reviewed today, same set of plans. Just provide the curb line. So we made a note showing that the curb line does continue across. Fine. Now I get moved to tonight's meeting, so 2 months. I'm here thinking that everything's fine, everything's satisfied, we're going to a public hearing, everything should be fine. An hour and a half prior to tonight's meeting, he sends a memo saying, I don't have the set of plans, submit the set of plans. That's odd. You just made a comment on them 2 months ago. How do you not have the set of plans? And I've discussed these plans with you and with Pat, because he's forcing me to sink the houses lower, where now I have to set pumps in my driveway to pump to my Kotex. So I'm already boarding a flood zone. He wants me, and this is technically good engineering, to sink the houses lower so I can invite water into my house and then pump it out at the same time. So then I send an email, you do have the plans, how could you not have it? Within 15 minutes, he finds the plans, reviews them in 15 minutes, and sets a whole laundry list of comments. How is that possible?
Well, I think you have to cut him a little slack. I don't think it's a good idea for you to complain and not to us about it. I mean, I think you need
I
to.
want to
just
go on the
talk-
record because this continues, and it's very difficult to communicate with the gentleman.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, you can't even get a meeting, and how,
And he's
you know,
super busy.
so am I. I'm very super busy too.
All
Okay,
right.
and this is my livelihood. So
Well,
how
you're
do
on
I
the record.
continue
You're on the record. so-
carrying
but
a project
You have
like
to
that?
continue. You have to continue. So the idea is, I think you need to just take a deep breath, meet with him over these. One more month, if we can get you in sooner, we would, right?
Well, next month.
Yeah, next month. So just, I mean, we can't do much about being in the middle of this.
I
but it is on the
understand that.
record.
I understand that, but you have to. I just want to say
Yeah, no,
how
I
frustrating it is to
Yeah.
conduct a practice like this. It just doesn't work.
Well, I can imagine
It's
how
very
frustrating.
unprofessional. It's irrational, and it's
Well-
careless.
Well, it's actually,
You also you see what our agenda looks like every month, right?
he's,
There's a lot of
And then
projects.
maybe he needs more help. Like,
That's-
I mean, that's not my problem. That shouldn't be
I've never
my
heard you come
problem,
up
that you
here,
have a
but
large
after all these
agenda.
years of you working in town, I've never heard you come up with this problem
Yes,
before.
because I try to be patient.
Okay,
I've been
well,
patient
try-
for
keep
18 years,
trying. I
to
know.
tell you the truth. So
Keep
today,
hanging in there.
I usually don't do this, but today I've just had it. That's the truth, if you really want to know.
I understand. I'm not
Okay.
laughing at you. I'm
I know.
laughing and understanding.
Well, thank you for your time.
No problem. So we have a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone here that wishes to speak on this application? Okay, motion to close. Adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll see you in October. 81 Crystal Street.
Hi.
Tina Martinez, 81 Crystal Street. I'm here because the architect is, wife is having a baby. So, he had, it's basically a continuation of the last meeting. We had addressed all the issues that Michael had given us for curbs and for the catch basins as of last meeting. And I think he came back today and just said that there were things that he was going to address with the architect and asked for the plans, further plans to come, so.
Thank you.
They're all here for me.
Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Plans here.
Excuse me? Yeah. Presume there's people here that would like to speak on this application?
Hello. Good evening. My name is Ryan McCall. I live at 82 Crystal Street. So, 82 Crystal Street. So I would just like to express my concern with flooding. I know that we are in a flood zone there. My family's been living at that property for a very long time. I moved in 3 months before Ida and had a very rude welcome with getting over 8 feet of water that came in up through the first floor of the house. So I had to completely gut the first floor of the house and then live on the second floor with my 2 children while my daughter was in a flare with colitis and my son who also has congestive heart failure. So going through all that, not ideal. I just want to know, I went to school for engineering, got my bachelor's, my master's in civil. I just want to know, has there been a stormwater pollution plan prepared and submitted on the impacts of putting 2 structures on that lot? What that's going to do. They're going to be removing trees on that property as well. And there's literature that the town engineer has published in weekly newsletters in volumes 15 and 20 about how trees are important in flood mitigation. Also, I'm curious if there was a floodplain development plan permit submitted as well. According to Town Code 146-4-2-1, it shall be unlawful to undertake any development in an area of special flood hazard as shown on the flood insurance rate map enumerated in section 146-3.2 without a valid floodplain development permit. I know that the plans that were submitted, I understand there's some sort of architectural review for them as well, but looking at just square footage of the footprint of the house, taking out driveway, pathways, everything, you have the existing footprint, which would be 2,023 square feet, and 2 new 2.5-story properties, dwellings that would total 2,719 square feet. That's increasing by 34.4%. So I don't know how we can say that it won't induce any more flooding in that area if there's nowhere for that water to go by taking away permeable surface. So, I know that there's others.
Can you, the first section, you talked about a floodplain development permit. What was the first one you said?
The stormwater pollution prevention plan.
The SWIP, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? I wish I wouldn't have to be here too. So, thank you for serving the planning board. My name is Robert Porto. I live a block away at 1 Allen Place. To begin, I want you to realize that this is a dangerous area to shoehorn 2 houses into. It's ground zero for flooding and was the last place for the water to recede in April of 2007. Some may remember the newspaper photo of Harrison residents being taken from homes in the cat loader bucket. people had to be taken out in a bucket, in the truck. So look at the plans, and you can see that the developer's desperately trying to force a subdivision by, two and a half story houses rather than one, and will be endangering more people and more property. It will also look massive and ugly. I'm going to get to some legal stuff, if you just use common sense, you'll see that one house would be more appropriate in this extremely sensitive area. Look at the subdivision application, and you will see that everything about the existing home is far below the requirements in every zoning provision. And the proposed buildings are maxed out right up to every height and every floodway line. Yep, floodway. Now, so a floodway is, bigger than a floodplain. It's more important. Please keep in mind that this lot is as low, if not lower, than the LMK parking lot. Very low lot. Also note that the pipe that is within feet of this project carries most, if not all, of the water from Sunny Ridge, most of the water from Sterling Ridge, the ridge, all of the Harrison Avenue School, the LMK parking lot, the duck pond. Is it smart to subdivide here? All of that, there's a pipe going across Crystal Street that's taken all of that water. There was a house draining into Sunny Ridge. I was wondering where it was coming from. The brown silt going right into the duck pond and right into that pipe. I hate to say that the LMK parking lot, the school is blaming the town, because the LMK parking lot has been increased, drains right into that pipe. Oh, yeah, it's not our fault, the town let us do it. So, also, the town won't let me dredge the duck pond. So it's like, and then they build a turf field. That's another issue, it's going into the brook. But like, this neighborhood is getting swamped. I mean, let me dredge a duck pond, but I won't go into there, because I can get federal funding. Everybody's getting it, and we're just sitting there. So I know you need legal points, so let's go. Let's start. Let's start with the short form EIS. Number 6 states that the proposed actions consistent with predominant character of the existing neighborhood. Answer is yes. I think it should be no, because these are two monster houses, 2.5 stories, first of its kind in our neighborhood. Number 7 is the proposed, and this is in the short form EIS. Number 7, is the proposed action located in or adjoin a state-listed critical environment area? The answer is no. I'm stretching this one, but it's in a federal critical environment area. FEMA says that this floodway is there. So take it or leave it, but it seems like a yes. That should be a yes. Will the action create stormwater, number 17 of the short form EIS, will the action create stormwater drain discharge? The answer is no. Where's the gutters draining into? Is it, will it discharge into adjacent properties? The answer was no. The answer should be yes, I think. Don't claim to be an engineer, but these are, will it discharge into conveyance system? The answer is no. I don't know, what am I missing? It's got to, the water's got to go somewhere. Conveyance systems, then a storm drain? Anyway, so number 18, does the proposed action include construction or other activities resulting in impoundment of water? The answer is no. I don't know, I guess those Cultec, whatever that baloney is supposed to hold water, so it is impoundment of water under the ground. So I think it deserves another look and probably a positive deck. So Pat can look at that. So now let's look at Town Code 146.5-11. Proposals shall be consistent, and it says, proposals shall be consistent with the need to minimize flood damage. Statistically alone, 2 houses have greater probability of increasing flood damage. Than one. Because, the water is, when it floods, that water isn't just sitting there. That water is moving, and it's moving towards that 95 culvert. So if you have 2 houses and this water is like creaming past it, my wife has a picture of how fast it's going. 2 houses definitely is more dangerous than one. Once the neighborhood floods, the water flows towards Ellsworth to the 95 tunnel and will flow right into the cutout corner of the house. So I don't know if you remember, but in an effort to stay out of this floodway, should I show it to you? So this red line is the floodway. And they cut the corner of the house out. So the water is basically, you know, the floodway means that the water's kind of coming. Let's say it's here, so it's gonna be hitting this whole thing. Not good. So they're causing a problem there. Could be very dangerous. Two houses that close can also have water running between them at a fast clip and very dangerous. I think one house would be consistent with the need to minimize flood damage. Remember what goes into that pipe. That's a lot of water going into that pipe. I'm telling you, it's the LMK parking lot alone. And then 5.1.3, adequate drainage shall be provided to reduce exposure to flood damage. Where is the drainage? Anybody? I don't really see, I see in front of the driveway, there's drain clips, but.
I think they have standard Coltex, which may not be suitable in this particular instance. So
Yeah, it's low,
You're
you
raising good points.
It's no low pat. I think Coltex, I don't know if they're really working that wet area. The driveway drains, the Coltec recharge, so I don't know where the water's going. I don't think the Coltec is appropriate in this area. It's a plastic half pipe under the ground with, that will fill up in 1 or 2 floods. I mean, 1 or 2 floods that go into the, anyway. And 5.2, within zones A1, A30, and AE, I believe we're in AE, on streams without a regulatory floodway, no new construction, on streams without a regulatory, no new construction, substantial improvements, or other development, including fill, shall be permitted unless the applicant can improve, well, I'll read it. The applicant demonstrates that the cumulative effect of the proposed development when combined with all other existing and anticipated development will increase the water surface area of the base flood more than a foot. How can anybody demonstrate that? I mean, you're killing me over there. The school field, the duck pond, and that LMK parking lot, and this, not gonna help. Almost there. 5.1.2.3. Whenever any portion of a floodplain is authorized for development, the volume of space occupied by the authorized fill or structure below the base flood elevation shall be compensated for and balanced by way of hydraulic equivalent. Volume of excavation, Anyway, you can read it for yourself. I'm almost there. All such excavations shall be constructed to drain freely to the water course. No area below the water line of a pond or other body of water can be credited as a compensating excavation. I mean, again, is that Coltec supposed to do all that? Okay, you like them, right? The Coltecs, they're not, I don't think they're really viable. So I think common sense would certainly point to no subdivision, and it looks illegal to me. But I'm asking you to protect the Crystal Street residents and anyone downstream, the Brentwood and beyond, and postpone the decision for a better environment, postpone the decision, maybe for a better environmental impact and also a legal review. Otherwise, please vote no now, and we'll have to live with one house. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hold this. You see where the water line is like right there. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Megan Lawler. I'm at 77 Crystal Street. I don't have the facts and figures and codes to point to that luckily my neighbors do, but I live 2 houses away, and I was here last month when the conversation about, the 3 Purchase Lane was going on, and they were talking about the slopes and how one of the houses were at risk with possible of having more flooding due to this additional building and the slope that it was on. And sitting here listening to that, I could only try to imagine taking, we're talking about acres of land over in Purchase, 1.5 versus 3 versus 1 acres of land in that particular project, to hear where we're talking about putting two huge, what looked to me to be huge homes on one relatively small corner lot with, as my neighbor said, very old trees that do a wonderful job soaking up water that will be destroyed in this. We have a large tree in our backyard that I know some of my other neighbors would love for me to chop down, but every arborist that we've had in talks about how these suck up water in a flood zone. So we spend thousands of dollars every 2 years to get it trimmed back so that it's safe for everyone, but we're still doing our part to remove this flood risk in the tiny way that we can. You mentioned with the fire abatement, just the idea of using common sense. I don't know anything about all of the flood regulations and things like that, but if you're putting 4 homes, two-family homes, where one home currently lives, you're increasing what's going into the sewer, you're increasing, you're just decreasing every amount of available permeable space and land. And I'm not asking for you to do anything special or different or anything for those of us in the flood mitigation, the flood zone areas. I'm just asking that you not do anything to make it worse for us. I don't know if there's anyone in our block who didn't wake up at 3 o'clock the other day with slight PTSD. I ran out to see where my cars were. We lost 2 cars that night. Our first floor, the flood line was at my ear on our first floor. If there's even a chance that this is going to put a neighborhood through this again, I can't see how that can be worth it. And I beg you to please, use your empathy and just look at the logic of it as you go through and make this difficult decision. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Pat Porto. I live on Ellsworth Avenue. And I guess I was a victim of Hurricane Ida last year. We had about 6 feet of water in the basement. We do have a pump, but obviously there was no place for the water to go. And so the entire block, was flooded. I do have some pictures I'd like to share that Anya Porto had taken, which would show you, may I approach? Okay. The second one particularly shows Ms. Martinez's house. This is the side angle of it, and how much water was there. So there was obviously a lot of flooding. We were able to move our cars up on the school field, which probably.
That's the current house.
That's they too.
The current house, though.
Yep, that's the current house, correct. So, I guess I have 3 points. There's nothing that's been done with the duck pond, so that increases the flooding. We have a field that was built in the school, so there were no dams put in. So again, that increases the flooding. Nothing's done with the brook. So I do feel that this would occur again. And as the previous speaker said, when we feel the rain's coming, we do get nervous, like, are we going to have the same episode occur? It was a great devastation to clean everything up. So I would not like to see it again. I'm all for progress. One house being built, I could see, but I just can't see any way for the water to go anywhere if you do approve this. Thank you. Yes, I'm at 174 Ellsworth.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? You got them all back?
How old this pipe is?
Oh, the what?
Pipe is?
Fairly old. Yeah, the pipe is probably back in the 80s when they covered the brook. That was the open brook at one point.
Yep,
Right, it's got to be. The 80s, the pipe was covered, the brook was covered?
The pipe's around 30 years old?
Where? The pipe's been there since I was. Yeah, the pipe's been there forever.
But the brook was open over there at one point, wasn't it?
That's in the Allen K, on the Allen K field.
On that side? So in between, it was the pipe.
The pipe is across Crystal Street, and it's like,
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Okay, so, Ms. Martinez, I know you're the applicant, but you need to respond to some of these comments for the next, not tonight, not tonight. Not tonight. So we're going to adjourn the public hearing till next month, so that you and your professional folks have an opportunity to respond to the comments? Motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor? We'll see you in October. Thanks. Number 6, Rose Residence. We're going
That's
to
been-
adjourn this, right?
They've requested an adjournment.
Okay, so. Number 7, Monstra Residence, steep slope permit. Did I mispronounce that? Monastra, I'm sorry. It's misspelled on my notes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the planning board, town staff, and council. My name is David Gessel, and I'm the engineer of record for this project. We are here before you to seek approval for an application for steep slopes for a project involving the demolition and reconstruction of a pre-existing two-family residence in the B zoning district. And the reason we're before you is the property contains a differential grade of greater than 15 feet between the rear lot line and the front property line. And as a result of Chapter 235 of Town Code requires the project of this nature to seek planning board approval. I am joined here tonight by the design architect, Chris Crocco of Joseph Crocco Associates, and by the applicant, Natalia Monastra. Chris is prepared to walk you through some of the design elements of the submission, and Natalia is here for support if you have any general questions regarding the project. In your package, you should have received the full application for steep slopes, including site plans for pre-existing and proposed conditions. We also have presented before you, we'll show you tonight, a cross-sectional profile of the dwelling as it is situated in the property itself between the rear lot line and the front lot line. And additionally, you should have received sediment and erosion controls and provisions for stormwater management, all of which is required by code. Before I turn it over to Chris, I just want to say in our professional judgment, Chris and myself, the plan that we prepared is consistent with both the legislative intent and applicable design standards in Chapter 199 of the Town Code for the steep slopes. The proposed dwelling is consistent with required zoning setbacks, coverages, and it's situated at elevations very consistent to the pre-existing dwelling. Topography of the site, for the most part, will be stabilized with short statured retaining walls and modest slopes that are very comparable to neighboring properties. Any excess soil generated as a result of the project will be stockpiled at the front of the property and removed as work progresses. And lastly, as elements of landscaping are completed, restoration will commence as the project goes on. And I think with that, I'm going to introduce Chris.
Good evening, I'm Chris Crocco, Joseph Crocco Architects. We've designed a side-by-side two-family residence. One residence is roughly, thank you. One residence is roughly 2,600 square feet, the other is around 1,600 square feet. They consist of 4 bedrooms, and the other one consists of 3 bedrooms. We've been before ARB, it was approved by ARB, and we're here seeking steep slopes.
So this is fully conforming, other than the steep slope?
Yeah, zoning, height, it meets, yeah.
What about the driveways?
The driveways we're addressing will be going to zoning board, hopefully seeking a variance. We have the utility pole in the middle, and, we feel it would be beneficial to everybody.
The board has in the past asked applicants to move utility poles. This is an issue with the town engineer as well. And we've made other applicants have a single driveway, not two curb cuts. That's the issue.
No, understood.
The one thing that we may add is the proposed application as designed is providing more off-street parking than existing conditions. And furthermore, the property, the road, the side of the road where the property faces, there's no on-street parking allowed. So the two curb cuts are not gonna, we're not gonna lose parking on the street as a result. Not for you.
We're just giving you the heads up that we're taking more cars off the street and the street, side of the street our property fronts on.
Right, you can't park on it anyway. Right, I got it. But that's an issue with the town
Understand,
engineer that
understand.
that you need to deal with. Why would we do a public hearing, Pat?
So the issue,
Because
the
of the-
nonconformity with respect to the driveway is a different issue. So that may be something you'd want to hear
If
input.
there's anybody from the public that want to, yeah.
It's up to you. So your
Listen,
discretion's
I'm
not
rather,
required.
no, I got it, but the board has been pretty adamant about listening to folks, so. All right, so then let's set a public hearing for
I have a
this.
question. I mean, is there any merit to sending this to the ZBA before we do a public hearing to see what they have to say?
So the zoning board's going to react to that application. If the public hearing results in a position that warrants change to the plan, then they're granting a variance for a plan that may change. So I think you'd want to hear from the public hearing before that, in case there's a change. There may not be, but safe than sorry.
If I may ask, would it be possible to request a conditional approval pending the zoning variance granted? Is that an option you would consider?
We don't typically do that.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to set a public hearing for October 25th?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that Member Spano has joined us. Thanks, we'll see you in October.
Thank you.
You have to notice that now, right?
Yes, I'll send them the paperwork.
Get out of this, there we go. Okay.
Was there any engineering, was there any engineering on that? Did we get any engineering on that one? Was there, okay. Do they need to see this? Or
Yeah, he's,
is it-
132 Halsted Avenue.
All right, while we get set up with the TV, I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm Steve Rabel, as you heard earlier, with McCullough Goldberger and Stout. Now on behalf of Maynuth Holdings LLC, the owner of 132 Halsted. With me tonight is Joe Tremelli and Jan Johannesson from Kellard Sessions, Julia Riso Livingston, Parker Whitmore, and Ted Catino from MKDA Architects, and our traffic engineer, Carlito Holt from DTS Provident. So, perfect. The property in question is about quarter acre in size in the MFR district. It's a corner lot with frontage on Halsted and First Street, currently improved with a fairly old building that's a mixed use. It's a liquor store on the first floor and two-bedroom apartments above, as well as a large parking area. So the site is, by and large, impervious coverage. We are proposing to update the site and revitalize it by demolishing the existing mixed-use structure and construct a new four-story mixed-use building with commercial and parking on the first floor and apartments on the 3 floors above. This would consist of 6 one-bedroom, 3 two-bedroom, and 3 three-bedroom units. The project will also include rooftop amenity space and lawn area for enjoyment of the residents, as well as modern stormwater fixtures, which currently there are none on the site. We're also proposing to decrease impervious coverage overall. We think this will serve as transit-oriented development. The property is a 10-minute walk from the Harrison train station and across the street from the bus, and we think it'll be very attractive to empty nesters and young professionals. The proposed building is going to require a variance as designed for building coverage. 50% is permitted, 57.2% is proposed. But again, the overall coverage of the site itself is anticipated to be reduced. So we will be seeking a variance from the Board of Appeals. In preparation of this application, we conducted a fiscal and school analysis. The findings there were that there's a potential for an increase of roughly 2 school-aged children over the current residences, but that there would be an anticipated increase of $74,000 per year in tax revenue. We also looked at traffic, which included not just traffic volume, but sight lines, turning radii, and taking a very conservative analysis, not taking into account the existing development or potential for walking commuters to the train station. Our consultants still found a minor impact on traffic and no significant negative impact during peak hours. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Joe Tremelli to walk you through the specifics of the site plan, and then we'll round it up with our architects to show you a bit of what the concept for the building will look like. And then certainly, if you have any questions for us or our consultants, we have the full team here tonight.
Can I just add one question quickly? You said that the coverage you're seeking is going to be 52% rather than the allotted 50.
57.2.
It's 57.2, okay, great. But what did you mean again with the overall coverage is going to be reduced? How does that work?
So the criteria that's regulated is building coverage, coverage of the actual structure of the building. What's not regulated is total impervious coverage of the site, so things like parking lot.
Okay, so it's the parking lot that's going to change.
Yes.
Got it. That's what I assumed, but I thought I would ask. Thank you.
Of course. All right, so Joe, if you want to take over.
Other than to introduce myself, I'm Joe Tremelli with Keller Sessions Consulting. Are we okay with the screen? I have boards if you like.
You guys all right? Yeah? Okay.
So,
We have your stuff too.
Yeah, got the handout.
you're all familiar with the site, two-story building with an associated parking lot. With the existing conditions plan, Marcus, you just go to that. As was mentioned, we're proposing to remove everything, the existing parking lot, the existing building, the existing utilities, gas, water, electric, sewer would be, actually gas, sewer, water, and electric would be terminated for potential reuse. We need to finalize the sewer and water connections. Gas would be removed with the current moratorium. We don't expect to be able to get a new gas service, so we'll be doing an entirely energy-efficient electric building, electric appliances, electric heat and whatnot. So the gas would be simply abandoned. We've had a preliminary discussion with Mike Amadeo, town engineer, with regard to street frontage. Currently on Halsted Avenue, actually Halsted and First Avenue, there is a concrete sidewalk. We're proposing to remove that in its entirety and replace it with a new sidewalk. The curb along First Avenue is a mix of asphalt and concrete. We would propose removing that, replacing that with a concrete curb. The curbing along Halsted is granite for the most part. I think there's some pieces of concrete, but in keeping with the rest of Halsted, we would propose replacing that with new granite curb. The property is currently served by 2 curb cuts that allow you to circulate around the building. Those curb cuts would be removed, replaced, restored with conventional curb with a single central curb cut that would serve the garage space. We'll get into that in a minute. As far as any environmental constraints with the property itself is very flat. No steep slopes whatsoever on the property. As you're probably aware, there's a drainage channel on the immediate east. It's off-site, but it's along the immediate boundary on the eastern side of the property. That channel is also a FEMA-regulated floodway and floodplain. The elevation associated with that is about 52.7, I believe. Our site is roughly elevation 56, so our entire site is a couple of feet above that floodplain elevation. There's no portion of that 100-year floodway or floodplain that extends onto our property. There is, you can see in the top right corner of the property, there's a very small piece that is within the 500-year floodplain, but the only... Sure. Want to zoom in on that a little bit? Right there, where his cursor is? You can see that curved line that wraps around the corner there. And the only improvement in that area is landscaping. We're not doing any filling, there's no structure in that area. It's simply, actually, that's vegetated now with lawn, and it will be that when we're done, the proposal anyway. I think that's, yeah, I think if you can go to the next slide. So our proposed plan, as Steve explained, is a mixed-use building, retail and covered parking on the first level, 3 floors of residential units above. There's a total of 12 units, which requires 18 off-street parking spaces, which we provided in the garage space with 17 standard spaces and 1 ADA compliant space. Ample maneuverability within. The retail space is about 777 square feet in the southwest corner of the building. The retail space would be accessed by pedestrians from Halsted Avenue with an entry on Halsted. The pedestrian, or the, I'm sorry, the residential component can be accessed from a lobby on First Avenue or from a lobby entrance from the parking garage, and there's a staired access as well. As was indicated before, we're proposing new curb and sidewalk along the entire frontage. There is a requirement for open green space. With the 12 units, we're required to have 2,400 square feet of open green space. We are proposing, I think it's approximately, it's almost 1,200 square feet at grade in the rear of the building, that right rear corner. The balance of the required open space is proposed to be on the rooftop. Let's see. As far as stormwater mitigation, as was mentioned, currently there's nothing on site at all. There's no drainage whatsoever. Heat flows either out to the street or to the channel. We're proposing to collect, as is required by town, collect everything from the roof parking lot. We're going to discharge it to a subsurface infiltration system that's sized for a 3-inch rainfall. This is categorized as a type 1 land development, which requires capture of a 3-inch rainfall. We're proposing that with a Coltech system at the rear of the parking lot with an emergency overflow to the drainage channel in the event that that system was to surcharge. But I think important to note, as was mentioned earlier, we're...
Sorry about that.
Left my dancing shoes at home. We're going to...
You're dancing pretty well, Joe. That's-
The project itself, by its, just the nature of the project, we're reducing the peak discharge rates from the project with the inherent reduction in impervious coverage. Although the building is larger than what's there today, when you look at the footprint of impervious surfaces from a combination of the existing parking in the building versus the proposed footprint of the building and parking lot, we're reducing it by about 6%. It's a little over 600 square feet, but a reduction nonetheless. And we're still providing the added benefit with the collection and infiltration of any stormwater generated from those impervious surfaces. So I think that's a net positive. One other thing, the retail component requires 5 off-street parking spaces, but this is in the Halsted Avenue, what's it called, I'm sorry, commercial corridor, which permits the, I guess it's, I don't know if it's a credit, how to word it, but 10 spaces at a maximum are allowed to be, I guess, not required to be parked on site. So we'd be seeking that as well. I think that's it, unless you had any questions for me specifically, or I could turn it over to the architect, and then I'm not going anywhere. If
I
there's
just have
questions for him.
Green space on the roof, right? So is that, does the elevator go all the way up to the roof, or it's?
Yeah, I'll let the architect speak to that.
All right.
Did you have a similar question, or is it?
It was exactly the same question.
Okay.
Actually, a little bit more about, what the roof would look like. Also, just things like in the parking, are you going to put in charging stations and that kind of thing? I mean, that might be jumping the gun on that, a little early to ask that kind of question, but, I think any time we're looking at parking under a building these days, I would assume you guys are thinking about that. Okay.
We don't propose it yet, it's not on the plan yet, but
Right, but it's in the meta. Metaverse.
thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Julia Riesel Livingston. My company, MKDA, we're the architects for the project. And trying not to repeat too much of what you've already heard, the design proposal is to develop a 12 high-level housing unit and provide the retail on the street for public use. There will be 3 floors, and we're comfortably spacing out only 4 units per floor. They range from about 900 to 1,300 square feet, combination of one-bedroom, two-bedroom, and three-bedroom units. The design is, we believe attractive to, but certainly not limited to, young professionals as well as empty nesters. And the owner is committed to building a solid, sound, quality structure. The proposed images to the right and following slides after that shows the development in context with the neighborhood. I think the following slide has a little more larger images. So our proposal provides an architectural aesthetic that draws from the complements of the surrounding neighborhood vernacular, combining some traditional elements and materials in a modern way, with gabled roofs, large double-hung windows, the use of warm materials like stone and wood for the facade, shiplap siding, standing seam roofs. These are some of the materials that are under consideration, but not finalized. They kind of walked you through the ground, but as far as the building structure itself, the lobby entry is on first. That's where the mail will be dropped off. That's where garbage will be picked up. And the lobby itself will be small, but we'll have a lounge area and a connection back to the back parking lot, as well as the elevator and 2 stairs, one on either end of the parking lot. As I mentioned, there is green space to the back of the building. And on the roof, the balance of the green space, we're proposing to do over 2,400 square feet on the roof. There will be a lookout vista facing the Halsted Avenue side, being conscious of not overlooking on the residential side, having any kind of overview down into the residential units. The following slides after that are just really giving you a balanced illustration of the 4 different elevations, going from the south side, which is the Halsted entry. The entry is in the center of the building. We're screening all the parking, so it's not visible from the road. We're proposing here maybe like a wood slat or something like that to kind of screen it with some landscaping in front, warm tones like stone at the bottom level, privacy for all apartments, being no units are on the lower level, and then a corner for the commercial space. Wrapping around the corner on the west side is where you'll see the entry to the Halsted, and we differentiating the entry for an easy wayfinding to the entry of the building. And the other slides are just going back through to the north and the east elevations. And the following page is showing some illustrations putting it in context to the surrounding areas. If you can see on the first 2 slides on the top, you'll see the restaurant to the immediate left of the building. And then on the other side, you've got the retail stores across the street and the apartments. What we did talk about, or I want to just briefly say, is that the building, we're allowed to go at least 50 feet. We're being conscious to try to stay within that or a little lower. We're actually at, I think, 48.7 as our medium height. I did say there's an elevator, but to do the elevator accessing to the route, we'd have to go above the 50 feet. So we're proposing a lift within the building itself that's going to get wheelchair access up to the roof, as well as the 2 stairs as access to accommodate ADA and roof access. Any questions?
Yeah, 2 questions. I didn't see on the plan, where's the refuse, dumpster pickup area?
Yes, if you go back to the plan, Parker, just to the left of the building entrance, there's, and we're showing on the elevation, it's also screened with some wood fencing.
Which
Can
drawing
you
number?
point it out, maybe on the screen?
Yeah, can you circle where the,
Yes, so.
So there's going to be a chute on every floor where people can drop their garbage rather than carrying their garbage outside and into a dumpster. We're developing this chute where they can drop. And at that point, there will be gates that you can open up and have them, and the garbage pails emptied every day, as well as a small dumpster for maybe commercial use right there at the top of the plan.
I see.
So it's accessed through the back behind the gated.
And the other suggestion really is a package room. I see you have a mail room.
We have a mail room. We believe we have enough to accommodate not only the 12 units, but also we're going to design some kind of counter space for packages and things like that to be dropped off, conveniently left in that. But the plan is to accommodate all that kind of drop-off in the main lobby.
Because it is an open lobby, you know, where the mail is, so,
Yes.
you know, for theft of packages these days. Okay.
Yep, that's true.
I have a question.
We could close that off if we had to, I think, as a room. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where the intent of, open space comes from. I don't know if it's meant to be green open space around a building to kind of make us feel, suburban, or if it's open space for people's recreation, which you would have on top of the roof. Frankly, I don't really know how much people are going to use the roof, and I'm not arguing for more open space. I would love to see more consideration in a situation like this given to solar up there. Put solar up there. We need it. We need to get solar everywhere we can. And in fact, that has the long-term effect of saving any open space we have that would otherwise be turned over to solar fields. So I don't know how the board feels, but I don't know, Pat, if that's something that can be forwarded as an idea, if that's something, if it adds to your cost structure, but maybe it would save in the long run. I don't know. But this is the kind of discussion we should be having.
Yep.
If you ask me.
No, we did talk about it, and we did think we would like to see if we can accommodate it. Unfortunately, trying to meet the 2,400 square foot coverage for outdoor space, when you do the rooftop, we needed to double it.
Yeah, I would look into.
So if we could do less or none, as you're suggesting, and do solar.
I don't have the answers. I would say, as an applicant, it would, to me, be absolutely justified for you to say, we would be asking for open space up here. We can comply with the open space requirement. However, really what we need to be looking at, put it forward to us, is we need to get energy back into the system renewable. And this would be a great option to do it. Because I'm not really sure how much that space up there is going to be seen as
Usable.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
You might look into 12 residential units, right? Sharing one solar, rooftop facility is, I'm not sure that works. Plus, the common area electric is not.
No, it would go back into the grid. It would be it's not going to feed the building. They never do feed the
But there's
absolute.
limitations on what goes back into. Size of it.
But
Anyway,
any roof to people on their own homes do it. I mean, anything is going to help, anything. And that's why we got to start looking at this. Anything, honestly.
Well, I know we want to consider sustainable products and work in that vein, so it's certainly something we can look into,
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
I don't know. I don't know how you look at it economically or not at this point, but I know that if we don't start getting this up there and routinely putting this into our applications, we're all going to be regretting it in 10 years.
Yep. I mean, there are other roofs in the back that maybe can also, although that's
Beautiful
north
roofs.
facing,
All
but.
of the roof angles look beautiful for some sort of application. They're so beautiful now, the way that they're just almost skim coating the roofs with the panels. So I just put it out there. I don't want to get all quagmired in that, but I don't see the roof as being, I appreciate you complying with the open space requirement. I don't see it being an enticing open space. So if you have the argument that you're complying and can get it with open space, I would say push further and say, however, we really think the right forward move, and we can make this cost-effective is to apply with, a solar component. I don't know, seems to me it'd be very exciting to see more applications in that vein.
Understood.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if anybody else here feels that way or feels it's necessary, but it seems to me it's like the elephant in the
So
room these days.
We've seen a bunch of applications that have really attractive rooftop amenities for the residents to come in, that some of them look over some really nice things, some of them look over train tracks, but, they do serve a purpose. But what you say is, I think is a good argument to make, but that would require a variance.
Right.
Yep. That's not, currently our code doesn't allow for that, so you'd have
Right.
to go get a variance. But listen, you're going for another variance, so.
Well, we were
So,
hoping
yeah.
not to go for the two, so
But, so,
that's,
so of course, we'll take it into consideration, we'll look at it internally, and, this is the beginning of the process.
I think you'd have a better sell if you could show people that they're going to reduce their energy costs living in your building over having a barbecue upstairs.
Sure.
Honestly, well, no, maybe, maybe not.
It depends
I don't
on
know.
whether you
Wait,
like hot
you just
dogs or
wait.
not,
No, just wait. Just
And
wait.
Joe,
Wait till we get through this winter.
if you could, on the next map, if you could show where Ida's water showed up.
I honestly don't know offhand what the flood elevation was in this area during Ida.
Yeah, I know, I'm sure we can find it somewhere. Yeah, just you would indicate it on the map, because if you're still in a green space and it's not near your, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Ro, can you put it in the notes that I raised that topic?
And-
The minutes? Thank you. I'm
Is
going
it-
to ask that it get always, every time this
I'm
comes
sure,
up.
I'm sure you're aware of some of the other developments that are much larger in scale, that are in flood zones.
I may have heard of some.
You might have heard of some of those. We do ask, and 6% less is not insignificant, but it's also not significant. Other places we've asked for 3-to-1 mitigation of stormwater. I don't know you have a site big enough to do that, but if there's something that you could do that could reduce the coverage of the lot even more than what you're talking about, I think that would be helpful as well.
We can look into that.
I was going to say that the parking lot is largely the footprint of the building. There's two areas at the rear. You can see there's a couple of parking stalls. There's 3 parking stalls that extend beyond the footprint of the building at the rear. And there's a small triangular.
Listen, I get it, but,
So, yeah, no,
why you guys
what I was
get the big
getting at,
bucks,
maybe we
you know?
Get pervious pavement or something in those areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I like the, I think that, you're not set yet, obviously, on the materials, but, and it's probably a little forward for me to say, but I like the design. I think it's attractive.
yeah, it looks like it fits in. It's very nice.
Nice.
So we need to designate lead agency here?
I'll move.
Second?
second.
All those in favor? Aye. See you next month.
Thank you.
Maybe, right?
So, just as a point of process and piggybacking off of the application that was on before us, are we setting the hearing for next month as well?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So none of the technical reviews have been done yet, Steve, so
Okay.
we just wanted to get the presentation,
Okay.
start seeker, and we'll get technical review memos by next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good, thank you. Nice project.
West Red Oak Lane, and while you guys are setting up, I'm going to ask for like a minute and a half recess.
Absolutely, as long as you don't want housing in that building.
Well, generators, they make them big now.
Hey, Jim. How are you doing here? You guys speak.
Good to see you, bud.
For a generator?
Is this a generator? Are we looking
How
at
to
a
work for a
generator?
generator?
This is the generator?
Looks more than.
Must be a big generator. Maybe it's got some solar fields.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, well, let's start with that.
I don't think it's new.
And then we'll go. I'm gonna pull this up. The overall,
Did they put it in? Is it there for us? They're out of there.
And I showed up there.
See ya.
I'm sure. I was like, I know, but they were supposed to be selling fireworks and stuff, and then when they ripped everything out, now the tenant's gonna match the interior. So you do that. But they just left it. You deal with
It's just about the generator, the change of use is permitted, you're in, it's only the generator. Simplify, yeah, tell them what it's for, You don't need to complicate it. Absolutely.
Should do something that doesn't look like it's like, I look at that and I'm like, I'm not going there.
Let's just say that, great, way to poke the bear out.
I had to.
Side of the porch for 5 years.
Welcome, it's not a welcoming, like, you know. It's right out of like, you know, the third. It's true. Tie you down.
I'm so glad.
Different.
Well, I spent time in that chair. Dr. Newman, I spent time in that chair since I left that front porch. It's crazy.
We all spent time in Dr. Newman's chair getting
You see that? Exactly. He would pin you down.
I'd like you to make it clear that we helped you alleviate the process. I mean, you know, that we didn't make it all.
It's like the Frankenstein monster. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Pirro.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Albert Pirro, and I'm here tonight representing One West Red Oak LLC in connection with an application for amended site plan. Before I start, I'd like to just introduce the people who are involved in the project. I have the Gandansky brothers, I have Scott somewhere, I have Jeff, I have Aby, I have Brian Newman, who's the architect. David Cano is going to be in charge of construction of the project. This is a very interesting application because it is going to be a very brief presentation, I think a rather simple application. But the interesting part of it was Pat should really be up here making the presentation because it was really a go-round between Pat, myself, and Rocco regarding the site and what's permitted and what's not. It's a unique application. Basically, the site is very simple. It's a 7.54 acre corporate park that houses two separate condominium buildings. One West Red Oak is one of them, and number 4 is the other. The site is treated as a completely integrated site. It has 156,000 square feet. This building that we're working on is just over 21,000. It has 780 parking spaces, which is 5 per 1,000. The board has actually dealt with two of the large issues on the site already. You had approved for 4 West Red Oak, the same application we have tonight, which is for an on-site generator that is not in the building. It's on the surface of the 76% undivided area that 4 West Red Oak has. We're going to be doing the same at 1 West Red Oak, which I'll be talking about. You approved that already for 4. And also, one of the issues that came up that Pat, myself, and Rocco had to deal with is the fact that this is in the SBO zone. Presently, it is a general office building, which is being put to an adaptive reuse to a medical office building, and you dealt with that at 4 Corporate Park Drive for Simone Development. So both of those issues have been dealt with by the board. Having said that, I would like to just indicate that there is a complete presentation that I did on my letter to the board dated July 12, 2022, along with the plans and a full environmental assessment form. Notwithstanding the full environmental assessment form, should be noted that this is a type 2 action because the only thing that's being done is the addition of a pad which is under 4,000 square feet, which under CEQA makes it totally a type 2 action and effectively exempt. So we really won't even need, unless Pat wants to do something, any kind of an environmental determination. Having said all of that, I would like to have Brian Newman, who's our architect, quickly take you through the building and what we're doing on the inside. I think this is important because I think this is going to be an asset for the town of Harrison. This is a infusion center. Cancer infusion center is the primary use in the building, something that I know I had need for, and many of our other residents have had need for in the past. And I do want to take a couple of minutes just to go through that quickly. Brian?
Thank you, Al. Brian Newman, Newman Design. Good evening, all. I'll just briefly walk you through the test bit that we currently have for the proposed user space. Ground floor will be a medical imaging center. Obviously, there'll be a main waiting area. Just to take one step back, I'm sorry. The entire envelope, building footprint, and site, excluding the generator just spoken about, will remain as is. So we're not changing anything there. So existing entrance, waiting, ground floor is medical imaging center, combination of MRIs, PET CT, X-rays, some physicians' offices, and obviously support staff on that ground floor. The second floor is ambulatory care, so generally speaking, exam rooms, consult offices, IT, clinical staff areas, and again, some support for general ambulatory care. And the third floor is the infusion center. As you can see here, infusion bays, which are essentially larger chairs, exterior glass there, patients to be sitting, essentially around the room, quite honestly. You could look outside while they're sitting there for a few hours getting their treatment. Could be oncology, could be IV treatment for a number of medications that need to be done. Support for that integral pharmacy inside there that are specifically for those patients, not for anyone outside the building. Nurse stations to obviously monitor, take care of anyone getting treatment. We have some locker rooms on there for patients to change before and after treatment, and a few exam rooms and some admin offices for support as well. And then obviously waiting. Quite honestly, that's pretty much it. It's approximately 21,000 square foot facility, and then we're not changing the overall footprint or the overall envelope. Thank you.
I'd just like to point out 2 things. One is that the location that the generator is being put is within the requirements, the bulk area requirements of the code. There are no variances. It's completely in compliance with the code. Secondly, I think Brian mentioned this, but I do want to point out that there's a pharmacy in the building for the patients that are being treated. It is not open to the general public. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Infusion, does that include dialysis?
Yes.
Okay. That's good. People travel pretty far to get dialysis.
Chip is the most familiar person in the room with this, so.
Not from experience.
Not for treatment, but for construction.
Okay.
It's an amended site plan application.
So let's, the public hearing for October 25th.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? See you in a month.
I made the move.
Marshall and Jeff, right? Thank you. Rotatoria 632.
Good restaurant.
Did I say that right?
6:32, yes, you said that right.
What are they doing now?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Jacob Amir from Zarin and Steinmetz. Pleased to appear before your board on this application on behalf of 632 Anderson Hill Associates. With me this evening is our professional team, Chris Raffaelli from Studio Architecture and our civil engineer, Juan Yepes. I'll just briefly go through the introduction, then I'll turn it over to Chris and to Juan. This is a site plan application, which basically has three facets regarding the restaurant, commonly known as Trattoria 632. First, the applicant proposes to demolish the existing outdoor seating and to formalize the seating with a basically new 32-seat outdoor space, which will beautify that area and be a benefit to the patrons. The applicant also proposes to build additions at the front and the rear of the building, which again will be a benefit to the patrons and the restaurant. And finally, the applicant proposes to restrip the parking area, which, when done, will provide 3 additional parking spaces, bringing the total number from 33 up to 36 spaces. As we set out in our application, the property sits in the R1 district. It's improved, presently with a 2.5-story, approximately 4,600 square foot building, presently being used for a 110-seat restaurant. As I said, there are 33 parking spaces, and when completed, hopefully there'll be 36 parking spaces. Before turning it over to Juan and to Chris, the applicant would ask for 3 procedural measures from your board. 1, that it be referred to the Westchester County Department of Planning for review. 2, that your board declare lead agency. And 3, although I heard an earlier applicant make the request, I'll make the request that it be referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The applicant is going to need a variances for front yard and side yard setbacks, but I understand from hearing earlier your board's preference for going to public hearing and addressing any comments before taking it to the ZBA. So I respect and understand that. With that, it's a brief intro, and unless there are any questions for me, I'd like to turn it over to Juan first to give some more information.
Good evening, members of the board. Juan Yepes with the JMC. Really, Jacob said most of, what we're proposing to do. Under existing conditions, there's the existing deck on the back of the building, which is about 17 feet by 27 feet. We're proposing to reconstruct that with a patio. With patio, which would be about 19 by 42, so a little bit bigger than what's there currently. The two additions that Jacob mentioned, one's in the front over here, one's in the back, really by the two entrances to enhance those entrances. And we are proposing to restripe the parking area within our site, which is this area. Here, we're leaving the Deli's parking as it is. And this results on an additional 3 parking spaces for our site. So the site requires 3 variances as for the proposal. The front yard setback, a front yard variance for this addition, which is really, to square off the entrance. That requires a variance of 19.35 feet. The side yard setback, even though the building is about 1.5 feet from the property, and this will be like an internal addition, it is still within the setback. So that requires a variance of 3.76 feet. And a side yard setback for the pergola that's over the outdoor seating area, the patio area, which is a level patio area with decorative walls around it, and it has a pergola on it. The pergola itself is also within the side yard. That requires a side yard of 13.635.
The patio is not?
The patio is not within this, it doesn't require a variance, the patio itself.
The patio wouldn't be considered a structure, the pergola would.
And just to mention, we're not exacerbating any variances. Building is already closer than what we're asking for, so. But that's really it that we're proposing.
I have a few questions. Yeah. First, do you stripe the entire parking lot? You say you're gonna add 3 spots, and I'm very familiar with this place.
Right.
Do you stripe the whole thing already?
It's partially striped. There are 2 conditions. So there is stripes on the north side and in the middle. We're proposing to restripe it in a manner that would create more parking spaces.
All right, because in the back of that lot, I don't think you don't have defined spots in the back, do you?
No.
No, so what, are you gonna go and stripe the whole place?
Correct.
So you're saying, so you're not really adding more parking, you're just sort of making more defined spots?
Correct, that are compliant with the code.
All right, and when you say you're gonna do work in the front, I'm very familiar with the front of the place, I've eaten there, many times. So you have a couple of like little terraces. What are you doing to those terraces, if anything?
They remain the same.
Oh, because I thought you said you were doing something in the front.
Yes, we are. We're making a small addition to the building, right here. Squaring off that portion of the building, right at the entrance.
Right at so if you're facing the building, from which is it one of those 2, terraces that people eat on, or more towards the doors?
Right, so there's one terrace here, right? The one on the right, yep.
All right, now in the back, right now it's sort of you're not doing much of anything with that back patio. So what are you going to do to change that patio? It was sort of more used, I don't know, a year ago, and now it's sort of gone, discontinued, it looks like.
Right, so the idea is to enhance it, to make it a little bit more inviting, prettier, of course, with decorative walls around it.
You're gonna change the flooring, it's sort of like a sort of.
Yeah, it's a wood
stairs.
deck right now, right.
Yeah.
It'll be a patio area instead, a ground patio, with what material, Chris? Stone. So yeah, so it's definitely making more inviting.
What's on the second floor of this structure now, above the restaurant?
Hi, Chris Raffaelli, Studio Architecture. So first floor is bar and dining. Second floor is office and party room. Party room, if you're facing the building from Anderson is on the right side, and the other side is office space.
And then there's a driveway that goes down underneath the restaurant,
Between-
correct?
Yeah, it kind of dissects the building.
Yeah, exactly. Is that any work going to be done on
No
that?
change.
It's height? You can't change anything
can't
there.
change it.
Right.
Just
And
for the
so-
record, it's really two driveways, isn't it?
There's one between our building and the deli.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shared entrance.
Yeah.
And then the other one that goes under the building.
Right. And so you're squaring off the front space on the left side as you're looking at the building?
On the right side.
right side.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the building, it's the entrance immediately to the right of the underpass.
Right.
And that is, right now, it's a small 5-by-5-ish kind of platform, which is right at the entrance. So we want to enclose that for weather protection. Similarly, on the back, if you're looking at the building from the rear, on the right of the cut-through, there's the stairs that go up to the main floor. We're going to enclose those stairs and get them out of the weather.
I think you also ought to consider, I know it's probably not part of your plan, but you should have signage to tell people when they're leaving the place, you know, cars, which side to go on, because I've seen near head-on collisions there more than once.
Yeah, I
It's
think-
not safe, just to let you know.
Yeah, it's a tough site.
We looked at this years ago.
Yes, we
And you were denied something based on that. I mean, there was I don't remember what the application, there was a previous owner, I'm sure. There was something, I don't remember.
It wasn't denied, it just never made it.
Oh, it never made it on. Can I ask the history of this outdoor patio? Is this something that we have approved? I'm not really sure whether this is,
So the owner took advantage of the early releases in COVID to have an outdoor dining area.
yeah, but
Right,
that, I mean, he took an advantage to do that?
We gave the restaurants latitude during COVID to
Right.
do that
I
sort of
think
thing.
now
So-
we need to be careful
Well,
because it's
that's why
neighbors.
he's doing this. So he's abandoning that and he's proposing.
But
this.
it's an outdoor patio and it's already impacting neighbors, the noise.
Right, this will be a new outdoor patio, replacing that temporary COVID-related.
Right, but is that
deck.
what we want? An outdoor, do we want any patio now? I mean, the patio I can understand during COVID, but if it's impacting the neighbors and it's hard and there's no control over noise and music and late-night revelry, I think we ought to be looking at whether that is extendable, because I understand that that was granted, given an exceptional situation we were all trying to deal with.
Right.
But now that we're getting past that, I'm not sure that it should remain an outdoor patio.
So
You
we-
seem to,
No, sorry, to interrupt. So we've looked at that as a concern, especially the noise and the late night noise. I know the restaurant has certain hours, and I think they cut off at 10 o'clock, so that is one of the things that I know the applicant was looking at very seriously, that concern.
Actually, it's not the seating is not really what's noisy. What we heard from one or two of the neighbors, it's really the music. The seating, they don't go very late, because I mean, it's a suburbia. The place is like cleared out, you know, the back deck by like 10 anyway, but the music is very loud.
and then also, parties, there are parties back there. There was a reference to like of New Year's Eve, and that's just like, neighbors never signed on for that. I mean, you guys got this outdoor patio during COVID, and you didn't respect the neighborhood.
But with this application, that is again something has to be looked at,
No, really
to
looked
make-
at.
To
No,
make it right.
really looked at.
And we're now past that COVID period, and
And really past it.
So what?
Okay, it's not okay.
To that point, what I was gonna ask for is, what's not on here is a perspective from the neighborhood, from where the houses are. I mean, you can see them, but we're looking down at it this way. What would be helpful, Chris, is to, from sitting on the patio, where's the house, or from the house looking down, how close am I? And what kind of visual impact is this gonna have?
Yeah, and what
from-
recourse do
from that?
neighbors have? Nobody wants to be the bad guy and call the police. When the manager just kind of is cleaning up and forgets to turn the music down, It's really hard to enforce this. We've had it at country clubs. We've been really intense with country clubs when they've asked for outdoor patios in the past. This is not new. Looking at this carefully when it comes to an outdoor social situation in a neighborhood.
Yeah, but actually, in their defense, it's not like they put the music outdoors. They don't put the music outside. They have the music is actually next to Anderson Hill Road. It's very loud, true, but it's not, I don't see where this patio is really going to have an impact in terms of music. The music plays whether the patio is being used or not.
yeah, I think it would be helpful, to your point, to see the proximity of the houses and to see where the music is, add those details. And
Yeah, it's the music, it's people leaving it, when the bar, the restaurant closes at a certain time, when's the bar closed, right?
At the same time.
Oh, it does?
It's all the same facility.
Listen,
You know-
this was a bar when I was a kid that was open a lot later than 10 o'clock. And those houses were there then, so,
Be interesting to
Again.
see what the public, comment is on it. on
Oh,
this.
there is one
But,
letter.
yeah, and when we open the
No,
public
there's no
hearing.
public hearing, yeah.
And also, it is an amenity to have the outdoor seating.
Absolutely.
It's charming, it's attractive, people use it.
I'm just questioning, guys, I'm not questioning that, I'm questioning how they got it. They got it during COVID.
So they're replacing that. That issue is resolved. That's going away by virtue of this application. They're asking you for something different. So you can deny this application.
Right, that's what, but I'm trying to say
And the
that
COVID
just
related
because
seating
they
would be
have one
eliminated.
now that we didn't approve, is
Right.
this the right use?
It's
That's my
not
question.
precedent setting in any way. So you should not bear in mind that because during COVID we allowed seating there, that you should allow this to occur.
That's what
If
that's the
you're
point I'm
objecting,
making,
you can
exactly.
object.
It was not something that we looked at seriously even in the beginning. This
That's
is
why
the
we're
first
looking at
time.
it now.
Right,
Exactly.
but an amenity, we all would love all the amenities, right?
We should.
And, no, we have to think about the neighborhood too and the impact.
You have some talking to do with your client. So,
I just like the assumption that it's just going to be rolled over into another outdoor patio. I'm sorry, people who've been on the board with me for a long time know I get it's inflammatory to me to not approach it more in a straightforward way. To say, look, we did this during COVID. It's really turned out to be great for our business. We humbly ask you if we can now start from scratch and really get a decent patio going.
Right, I think that's the intent of our application.
Yeah, but that wasn't stated. It was like, oh, now we're just, we have an outdoor patio, but we want to improve it.
so let's schedule the public hearing for October 25th.
So moved.
Second.
And I won't, believe me, I don't hold it against you, honestly. I just want to be clear. Okay.
See you in October.
See you guys. Have a good night.
And I'll come have a drink before, have a drink before the meeting at the Trattoria, which is right up the street from me.
Number 11, Bell Cleaners, 285 Halsted Avenue.
Hi, good evening. My name is Min Peng, 285 Halsted Avenue, Bell Cleaners owner. It's a very simple agenda. I'm setting up my dry cleaning machine in my store.
Want to start again?
Hi, my name is Bobby Kim. I'm his nephew. I'm here for just helping out, his kind of, language issue, things like that.
No, it wasn't his language.
We
couldn't hear him.
I'd like to add more information what he's trying to say. All right, first of all, he owns dry cleaning Bella Cleaners, 285, and he's been there since 20 years.
Yeah, 2003.
So
2003.
20 years, and it's been used drop store, as it is. There was no, any equipment or any washers, so he handles 100% outsourcing company use. But you have to understand, during pandemic, COVID-19, everything went up. Labor, utility, supplies. The only thing didn't, waste my kids' grade. So I'm sorry. Yes.
That was good.
And my salary. So what you gonna do? So anyway, so he's trying to, propose drop store to plant. You want to put machines so he can serve his customers, better price and better quality. The reason is he's doing good. I think he's trying to best he can serve his customer, but when it's, weather issue, like raining, snowing, there's nothing he can do. He got spots on it, so, but if he has machines and presses at his store,
So here's the
Yes.
two issues, right? One is the town code does not allow this with residential units in the same building.
okay?
So your business is in a building that has
Residential.
apartments. Correct. Up top. And I know that your application has referenced a chemical that's different than the one that's referenced in the town code. What you would need to provide is how that's different
They
chemically
Chemically?
from what is actually prohibited in the town code, because if
Which
it's.
is perk, which is.
No, he's not gonna use a perk.
I got it,
That's-
but you need to demonstrate, other than, trust me, it's not perk, that this chemical is,
I believe he submitted all the MSDS.
I remember seeing that.
So there was material that you'd submitted?
Yes,
But it's,
yes.
I think you need to break that down into layman's terms and compare it to perk. So it was all about that specific chemical.
Okay.
How does that relate to perk? What's the
Okay.
differences? Why is it better?
Why it's
Why this is okay.
cheaper than perk?
Right, and then how do you get around the fact that there's still a chemical in a residential?
Upstairs.
Yeah, it says it's highly combustible liquid, hazardous combustible.
Right, so just because it's not perk doesn't make it okay under the town code.
Okay.
So, we'll give you another month to figure that one out, but that's a pretty big lift.
Okay. All right. Okay, sounds good. I will prepare all those two questions and see you in next month.
October 25th.
You want to schedule a public hearing just in case?
What is your recommendation there, Mr. Perry?
Why not?
Why not?
We can always, adjourn.
Schedule a public hearing, October 25th. Motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to adjourn now, right?
Questions also is, with using this, do we need some
Oh,
sort
no,
of
you have a briefcase.
sprinkler system?
Litigation bag.
Oh, no.
It's getting serious.
No.
So we just need about 2 minutes to set up, please.
Yeah, he's gonna rob us.
Toxicological, acute
How many
toxicity,
times did we almost get in an accident coming out of the hilltop?
oral, it's super scary. The rat oral, oh my,
That's not.
and greater project than 10 grams in rabbits. Eey.
Are they really?
No deaths or treatments were noted during exposure.
Who's in that, do they own that building, do you know? That they could,
No, they don't.
they don't?
Those cleaners?
No?
Yeah, it's nasty stuff.
I don't know that. You know, it used to be Butler Brothers? It used to be a Dairy.
Butler is on
No,
the
you're
other
way.
side of the street.
This is across from Dunkin' Donuts.
No,
Oh,
Yeah, it's not, yeah, it's not those two. It's another one.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Is
some
that
of
across from the
everybody
train
knows that he
station?
has.
No, it's the one that's across, it's the one by, this is.
Carvel? He's all.
No, there's three of them. There's two by Carvel, and then there's one.
I thought that's what this was.
Is it that one? I thought it's the one.
We're almost ready.
The one right across the
I thought it was across the street from CVS.
So maybe we can just,
It's not.
It is, it's next to Carvel. It's next to Carvel. It's even more reason why. It's next to an ice cream store.
Yeah.
Next to an ice cream store.
Yeah, that used to be Butler Brothers.
Yes, it used to be Butler Brothers.
I didn't understand what you were
Yeah, Butler, I know that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's all right.
Good sales.
Should cut my hand very thin.
okay, we are almost ready. You want me to pull the TV out at all, or is the angle?
Fun for
You did good work.
David and Kimberly to see. David, is that better? Kimberly, is that better?
Yeah, definitely
Yes.
better, yeah.
Don't pull it out too far.
No, we don't want any collapse.
It'll be a short meeting then.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Too bad, before 9 o'clock.
You're not done yet.
When I first saw the agenda, I didn't know what time it would be. So, good evening, Chairman Stout, members of the board. Very pleased to be here this evening
My name is Seth Mandelbaum. I'm a partner at the law firm of McCullough, Goldberger, and Stout, and we're pleased to be here representing Rose Group Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Rose Equities, and K&K Developers, Inc., doing business as Garden Communities, who together are the contract vendee for the approximately 28-acre former Renaissance Westchester hotel property located at 80 West Red Oak Lane. We have about a 30-minute presentation for you this evening, after which we'd be happy to answer any questions regarding what we believe to be a very exciting project for the town of Harrison. As I'm sure you all know, the 348-room hotel, which was built in 1978, originally as the Stofers Hotel, then later and more recently as the Renaissance Westchester Hotel, closed permanently in November 2021. This is a photo of the iconic mansion, which was actually built in 1905 by a prominent New York City architect and was incorporated into the hotel. I think probably all of us have been to some life event there, whether it be a wedding or a sweet 16 or a bat mitzvah or whatever it may be. And we're pleased to report that the applicant proposes to preserve the mansion and incorporate it into their design, as you will hear about in a few minutes. The applicant proposes to redevelop the property with a luxury residential community to be known as Renaissance Harrison, which will create two subdivided parcels of 12.9 and 15.3 acres respectively. It will be a two-phase project consisting of two residential quads, including a workforce housing component, anchored by large gathering places to be known as the Commons and the Mansion, together with 7 acres of minimally disturbed woods. There will be connectivity to Wegmans and retail and amphitheater spaces available for public use. The property is in the SBO Special Business District, in which SBO multiple dwelling is a permitted special exception use under Section 235-17X of the Harrison zoning ordinance. We have submitted the market study that is required under the code from RCLCO, confirming the strong demand for the proposed luxury rental units at this location. You have in your packet support letters from neighbors at Wegmans and the USTA, the immediate neighboring properties, as well as the Building and Realty Institute, who strongly support the project. We've been working closely with the Windward School, another neighbor on West Red Oak Lane. In fact, we had a parent Zoom on Monday evening, which was very well received, we thought. The parents were given a lot of information beforehand, and we've been working closely with the headmaster of the school. We've also spoken to representatives from PEPA. Finally, I just want to note, we've been talking to Pat often.
Routinely.
We've agreed to do a draft environmental impact statement for this project. And in fact, we've already run a draft scoping document by Pat over the summer, and that was also included in your packet. Before I hand it over to our very talented team, I just want to spend a couple of minutes on a little history lesson, if I may. Just to put this in context, some of you have been on the board for longer than others and know intimately about some of the projects that have been approved in this area that's known as the Teardrop. But I think it's important to go back a little bit on what led to the redevelopment of this area that's been so successful, and then talk about how this really is the last piece, this 28-acre site, to complete what has been almost, I would say, a revolutionary reimagining of what was just office buildings a few years ago.
Empty office buildings.
Yes, thank you, Pat. So going back to 1947, which is as far back as the Westchester GIS system will go, here is Westchester Avenue. There was no I-287. There was no I-684. Here's the hutch, which is actually about 100 years old. And right over here was the mansion in 1947. You see a lot of farmland on the White Plains side and the Harrison side. Really very little developed in this area back right after World War II. We're going to jump forward about 40 years, and a lot has changed. So now you've got 287 here, you've got 684 up here. The mansion is still there. The hotel wasn't there yet. This is Texaco, which is now Morgan Stanley, that you heard about earlier this evening. And you see Lowell Shulman being very busy, building office buildings here on Corporate Park Drive. This is the old Gannett headquarters. And also you see some of the offices developing on the White Plains side. Here's White Plains High School. So then, a lot happened between the 70s and 80s and 90s. Between 1972 and 1988, there were 4.5 million square feet of commercial office space built along the Platinum Mile in Harrison. That number's out of your 2013 comprehensive plan. And at the height, in 1984, approximately 60% of the Harrison's tax revenue came from the office buildings along this corridor between White Plains and Rybrook. However, by 2013, that number was down to 18% of the tax revenue because it had been overbuilt, it was corporate downsizing, of course, we had the 2008 recession, and the town had the foresight, the town board and the planning board, recommending to the town board and then looking at each individual application to consider different uses and not just office. And it started here with the Summerfield Suites Hotel, actually, that Frank McCullough got approved in 1999. I had to look that one up. It's now the Hyatt House. And of course, when Gannett became Lifetime Fitness, which is on 22.4 acres, just to put it in context, Lifetime is 22 acres, and our site is 28 acres, just to give you a little comparison. That opened in 2014, and that kind of changed the game. The comp plan was adopted in 2013, and it's kind of taken off from there. So in this 2016 aerial, you can still see these two office buildings at 103, 105, which is now Caraway, these three office buildings, which is now Wegmans, another office building here that will be the Trammell Crow project that's under construction, and here is what has become Simone Development, which will be Montefiore, which was slowed down by the pandemic, but I understand they're ready to fit it out. Chip, don't say anything. So now we come to present day. You can see the Caraway project, 450 units on about 10 acres. Trammell Crow is about 10.5 acres, another 450 units. Excuse me, Caraway's 421. This one is 450. You've got Wegmans, which has to be one of their highest performing stores, I would think, how busy it is. You've got the project here, the medical project I mentioned. So it's really been transformed from where we started, and even from the 2016 aerial, and then, of course, the site here at the former hotel site. So really what was kind of an experiment in the comprehensive plan of how do you leave some office, which will become more in demand by getting rid of some obsolete office and mixing in some other uses. We kind of theorized about it, but it really has happened in an incredible way. And we're very excited to present what we hope will be sort of the last beautiful piece of this experiment. So now I'd like to just briefly introduce our team, and then I'll hand it over to Leonard Glickman. Leonard is a principal. There's Leonard. Leonard is a principal with Rose Equities. He's going to tell you about his family business and their long history, as well as Garden Communities, another private family-owned company, and their collective vision for the site. Also here this evening is Scott Loventhal, a development partner with Garden Communities. Next we have Andy Tung, who you all know very well. Andy and I have actually worked on both Lifetime and Trammell Crow together. Andy's going to take you through some of the planning context, existing conditions, the proposed two-lot subdivision. Carlito Holt, another partner in DTS Provident, who focuses on mobility, is also here this evening if there's any questions about mobility. We have Alan Ward from Sasaki, a principal planner and designer, who's going to briefly take you through some of the landscape concepts for the site. And finally, Stuart Locks, a principal at Perkins Eastman, who worked on the Avalon project right across the train tracks, will take you through some very high-level architectural concepts. This very talented team also includes a design architect, John Rubel from Moore Rubel Udell, and Richard Chandler from Studio Valerius. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Leonard Glickman, who's going to briefly tell you about their vision for the property, and then we'll give you a little more detail, and then happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Chairman Stout, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Leonard Glickman. As Seth has mentioned, I'm a principal at Rose Equities, And together with our partner, Garden Communities, Scott Leventhal is representing here tonight. We are the applicants for what we are calling Renaissance Harrison at 80 West Red Oak Lane. I'm going to abbreviate my speech because Seth said a lot of it. But in any event, this is a word cloud that we've put together, and I thought it helps sort of direct the importance of what we consider important. And first and foremost, the word family. We are a family business. My mom and dad started this company in 1949. My partner Ziggy Wilf and I started together as friends in kindergarten. We've been together 67 years. His family, his father and his uncle started their company in 1952. So family is important to us. And family, we call ourselves owner builders. We don't call ourselves developers because we own and we build. We have a multi-generational outlook. We rarely sell. That doesn't make us better, it just makes us different. So when we come into a community, we hope to become part of the community. And that's what we're here. We're very honored and appreciative of the opportunity to seek approval of what we've considered to be, I think, a very special concept and what we're going to propose to you. So who we are, again, is family. We're private, long-term, generational. What are some of our core principles is important? And certainly the first one is respect. Respect for our neighborhood, respect for our community, respect for what we want to do with this site. As Seth has mentioned, the first thing we determined was we were going to keep the mansion. There's a history related to that, and we were very proud of it. The architect happens to be the architect who designed the New York City Library and the House and Senate buildings in Washington, D.C. Very well-known Beaux Arts architect. And in the course of exploring the site, we came across this configuration on the mansion's fencing, which is a rosewood. And we decided to incorporate that into our logo. And we will incorporate that into other opportunities where there may be low-rise fencing, et cetera, et cetera. That will become a very identifiable and iconic symbol for our community. And so, again, respect, sustainability is another one. Very much aware of the impact that we can have on our environment. Quality of life is a very important one to us as well. We have a tradition in our community, in our businesses, between Garden and ourselves, we tend to build larger units, much larger units in the market, 1,000, 1,200 square footers to 1,800 square feet, because we think it has served us well the first 70 years, and in a post-COVID world, we believe it'll serve us even better. Given the opportunity here, which distinguishes this site from the other sites within the teardrop, is the fact that this is 28 acres. And within 28 acres, we have the ability to do what we call authentic placemaking, real placemaking that is grounded in reality, not just some sort of high aesthetic. And so we've created a site which includes residential quads, it includes connecting gateway places, and it includes a great deal of minimally disturbed woods, 7, 8 acres of it. And we think that's a very important component to how the future bodes for these types of developments. This is an opportunity to create a real live, work, play environment in which there is residential, there will be retail that will be available to the public. We plan for an amphitheater that will also be available to the public. So we are trying to fulfill in many ways the community benefits, the intention of the comprehensive plan of 2013. And we see this, as Seth described it, the Teardrop is a neighborhood, an emerging neighborhood, made up of people who not only work there, but live there. And so we're very conscious of that in terms of the connectivity that you as a board and as a town has envisioned, and we intend to complete that segment of connectivity with the connector road to Wegmans, which we have had a very good relationship with, and they've sent a letter of support and indicated that they will work with us very closely to create that connector. I think that when we think about what we're saying here, we're going to show you a lot of words, we're going to show you a lot of pictures, but we hope that we're going to get the opportunity to show you, to translate words and pictures into deeds. And we really are about enterprise and legacy. We're a business, but we also have a sense of time and of the future. And think that Roz knows that I've had had a great opportunity to bring my grandson up here about 4 or 5 times already since March. Now, it's true, I had to bribe him with ice cream from Murray's, but he did come. He's very excited about the opportunity of partaking with us as a generational shift goes from one generation to another. And so I want to leave you just with one thought, that great societies and great towns can be defined by old men planting trees, the shade under which they will never sit. Now, I hope I'm not that old, but we do have a sense of legacy, and we do have a sense of purpose, and given the opportunity, we will provide you with not only in words, but in deeds. So I thank you very much, and I'll leave it back to Seth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time you come up with your grandson, you've got to get him the ice cream sandwiches from Wegmans. Not kidding you. They are this big, and he'll eat about 5 of them in a roll. They're great. They're the best.
It was a little late tonight, or else I would have brought it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leonard. Now, Andy Tung.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Seth stole some of my history story, but I'm just here to
I
provide.
don't know which one of you has the name of the architect who owned the mansion.
Oh, John Carrere. But I'm here to provide a little planning context for the architecture and the landscape that you'll hear about. So this is our famous teardrop. Seth described how it came to be and how it changed over the years. The 2 things I want to point out are it's wrapped by limited aerial highways, and so the only way in is off Westchester Avenue, westbound. And there are basically 3 cul-de-sacs outlined in orange here that give access to those properties. The 5 sites that Seth mentioned that this planning board has approved for redevelopment over the last 5 years are shown on this slide. They're a little bit difficult to see, but you know Wegmans, Lifetime, the 2 residential projects, and Montefiore. They have brought new life and are bringing new life to the teardrop, which we believe is part of the thinking behind the 2013 comprehensive plan. The other component, which 2 of those projects bring, are a connector, the first connector between 2 of the cul-de-sacs. And that's that magenta zigzag between Corporate Park Drive on the left and, Westchester Park Drive on the left and Corporate Park Drive in the center. 80 West Red Oak Lane is located at the bottom off of West Red Oak Lane. And this is a dormant site at the moment. And we believe that this proposal gives an opportunity to bring new life to that site and also to bring the last connection between the center cul-de-sac and West Red Oak Lane. Perhaps a tougher one because it requires more traversing 2 private properties, which in this case, Wegmans and 80 West Red Oak have been, as Leonard mentioned, talking together over the last several months to help make this happen with the town's facilitation. So these 2 slides, again, are about context. Existing on the left, existing aerial, just a zoom in of the former site, the former aerial, the teardrop aerial. The only thing I want to say here is really about the hotel and to explain how the hotel used the site. As Seth mentioned, it was built in the late 70s, and if you drive there, you can still see some components of the late 70s, even though it's been renovated several times. The entry drive at the bottom of the site is basically the extension of West Red Oak Lane, and if you happen to be driving along West Red Oak Lane, you don't really know where it ends. All of a sudden, it turns left, and you end up at the front door of the hotel. This 3-story building, that was the main building of the hotel. It was connected on the right side to the mansion, and on the left side via a pedestrian bridge to some additional guest rooms in the northwest portion of the site. There was a second drive along the west side of the property bordering the USTA boundary that led to the parking structure and on-grade lots at the southwest corner. The square white building is the tennis bubble, and then there's additional parking up here by the four-story residential buildings. Seth mentioned, and Leonard did as well, the 2013 comprehensive plan. That plan sets forth certain objectives for the planning and redevelopment of buildings within the teardrop, and 4 of those are particularly applicable to this site. One, the plan said, let's consider providing alternative land uses that provided additional housing choices within the town. 2, let's look to improve stormwater management. This site was originally built in the 1970s. There basically is no stormwater management besides pipes and catch basins. 3, let's enhance access to open space. This is one of the few sites within the teardrop within which there are some wooded areas. And 4, perhaps most important for this particular site, let's increase the connectivity between those cul-de-sacs. Our proposed Renaissance Harrison program and plan look to address each of those objectives. There will be market rate, or there is proposed market rate and affordable rental housing. There will be a stormwater management system that meets both the quantity and quality requirements of the state and the town. And we also have the opportunity for a small corner, the northwest corner of the site, to redirect some of the water that was sheet flowing onto the Windward School field. We can redirect that southward. 3, we are looking to, and Alan Ward will describe this in just a moment, retain and enhance woodlands and wetlands on the site, particularly in the northeast corner. And 4, we're looking to make connectivity improvements that Seth mentioned. So the final diagram is still on a base of the hotel base. You can see in the, middle gray, both the buildings and the parking areas, and the blue lines connote the circulation system of our proposed plan. And you note that they follow kind of the same circulation that the hotel first established, but they extend it. It's extended to the north to make the connection up to Wegmans. That connection will be a publicly accessible connection that allows people to drive and walk back and forth from north to south. It also provides a second emergency access to both cul-de-sacs from the other cul-de-sac, something which hasn't happened before. And if you look at the length of those cul-de-sacs and the number of buildings and people that are on them, that will be of great value, we believe. There'll be initial connectivity at the southwest corner. There will be an entry roundabout, which will serve both to direct people who arrive at the site, but also anybody who wanders down West Red Oak Lane will have a place to turn around and go back. So buses, emergency vehicles, and just people who wander eastward. And on the other end of West Red Oak Lane, where it meets Westchester Avenue, we're proposing a traffic signal subject to the Westchester County approval that will allow everybody exiting West Red Oak Lane to have better access and safer access to Westchester Avenue. My last framework piece is a little hard to see here, but there's a magenta line that runs basically through the middle of the site. Seth mentioned this is a proposed subdivision. We're looking to divide the site, the 28-acre site, into 2 pieces, basically 15 acres and a little under 13 acres, both of which will be fully complying with the SBO multifamily residential requirements. So,
Can I ask a quick question?
certainly.
I don't know how you figure this all out. It's amazing. It's like starting from scratch and you figure out this whole plan. It's amazing. Can you just explain the point you had made before about better access to Westchester Avenue? I didn't quite understand what you were talking about there. Like quickly, like what would that flow look like? I mean, I know how West Red Oak winds off, and you are kind of getting up in there. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's
So-
let's see.
Just trying to get a fix on that now, early in the process, like what you were because it sounded cool.
Yeah, I can't really, if you can imagine
You're going-
going someplace on Red Oak and then going back to Westchester Avenue.
So you're going to try to rework Red
No,
Oak?
that, you go straight out to Westchester Avenue. There's a little triangle.
Okay.
Where you come in on one side and you go out the other side. You go out straight.
Oh.
Right now, it narrows essentially to one lane.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to wait, and you're waiting, and you're looking back, and you're trying to find the best
As you're
place
trying
to
to
get
turn on to
out.
Westchester.
Right. You can only
okay.
go right. You can only go right.
Right. I know what you mean.
And then at times, like when the Windward parents pick up,
And there's no light there.
there's no light there today.
And it's crazy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, especially when, no, because I shop at Wegmans.
Okay.
So I'm flying over to get my pickup from Instacart. And I'm like, I hope nobody's coming out of Red Oak.
Right.
Because you're already dealing with the Hutch.
Yeah.
You've already dealt with the flow of the Hutch traffic coming on and off Westchester there. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're coming around. All right, so what are you going to do there?
We're proposing that there be a light at that
Oh, that's a very good idea.
exit.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. I mean, it's a pain to have another light there, but that's probably
It is,
wise.
but
Yeah.
for safety's sake, I think it's,
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Subdividing, what's the reason? Why subdivide?
subdividing, there are a number of reasons. Leonard, if you'd like to speak to that, but generally, it's just to make for two communities. This is, you'll see from the site plan that it is an integrated site, but there are two separate communities that are being proposed. There's a phasing component to this as well.
There's also a practical reason that the code doesn't allow only for 450 units maximum on a minimum of 5 acres. We have 28 acres, and so we intend to subdivide so that we can have a two-phase community. But neither phase will be any more than 380 units, which is far less than either Caraway or the Chapel Cove project on a per acre basis.
Yeah, you were sort of taking, which was great, a more holistic approach, to explaining your background and all that. I'm kind of curious, what made you guys, after 70 years, decide it was time to hit the East Coast?
Well, I am from the East Coast. I grew up in New Jersey,
Okay.
in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And I happen to always say, ask my parents, why did we end up in northern Jersey and not Westchester? Because I've always had an affinity towards Westchester. And so we are a national company. We build in several states across the country. Collectively, Garden Community owns in excess of 65,000 apartments. We currently are in projects ranging from 1,000 units to 1,700 units, a total of 5,000 units in California. We're building 260 units right now in Trumbull, Connecticut, in front of the Trumbull Mall. And so I'm an Easterner by birth. When I come back, I still say I'm going home. I have a daughter and 3 grandchildren who live here.
I'm just a little surprised. I mean, the areas of growth in this country, I mean, you could argue Texas, Florida, like if you're coming from
Those are the
California.
places we don't want to go to. We're long-term property owners. We look for our simple criteria. Will this site be as good, if not better, 70 years from today? Because that's how long we're going to own it. And we put our money into it, and my grandchildren's money into it, Scott's children's money into it. So we're very prudent about where we choose to plant our flag.
And I could ask Andy something. I know it's a simple, I apologize for my ignorance, but it's sort of a two-phase question. Where in there is Montefiore, and is Sloan Kettering in the teardrop? I'm a lot more familiar with where that is, that building. I didn't even know Montefiore was in our area.
Montefiore is still under construction,
wonder.
so it's not quite established there
Right
yet.
next to Wegmans.
It's the last thing you hit before you hit Wegmans.
Right.
Oh, okay. And is Sloan Kettering in the teardrop?
No, it's on the other side.
All right, because, it seems like the same basic,
It is.
another office park,
Yeah.
with where Fordham is, okay.
Yeah, Fordham actually happened before a lot of this. That was another one of the first redevelopments
Yeah.
of office buildings for another use.
I was here.
So the connection, the connection to Wegmans, where
Yes.
does that come in on the Wegman property?
It comes in right at the front aisle of the store.
That's
Which
the
is-
pickup line. That's where you go if you have an Instacart account.
The pickup line, but it also, we've been working as well with the fire department, and that was thought to be the most direct way to get from one site to the
I'm
other.
trying to remember the topography there. Is it higher than low? Is it a hill coming down?
The
Remember? Yeah.
Wegmans is up here, right? at the southeast corner of the Wegmans parking lot, it drops off. That's one of the reasons why we continued. So it drops off there, and there is, if you look over, if you were to get to the edge and look over, there is a retaining wall, or a series of retaining walls at that corner, which is why we followed the parking lot from the hotel and moved our connection up a little bit to the east, so that's more at grade up there, closer to grade.
I do want to point out one thing, that not only will the connector allow for emergency access, et cetera, but it's going to encourage walking and biking.
No, that's
the
something.
thing we want to do.
Oh, no, that's something that
Walking
we,
and biking.
we have been trying to get other connectivity up there. This is great.
You're going to have a
Yeah.
daytime population,
Yeah.
nighttime population. We
Yeah.
want them to walk and we want them to bike. We don't want them to drive as much in
Yeah.
the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, and having Wegmans there is gonna be a really big plus for the people living in there.
Absolutely.
That's gonna be great, yeah.
And then is there another connection from Wegmans to Lifetime?
No,
No.
not from
No.
Wegmans. It's from the Caraway.
Yeah, when Wegmans was in front of you, we did talk about that a lot, actually, and it was a big drop in elevation, and there's that wetland corridor through there.
Yeah.
So I think we collectively kind of determined it was a lot, it would have been so much disturbance that it really wasn't worth it to disturb that hillside with the wetland at the time.
So from Caraway, which is up on top of the hill,
Yeah.
basically, it would go,
I thought Caraway also, but did end up with a walkway to
There
one
is,
of the
there's
other
a road and a
developments.
walkway.
Yeah, there's a little,
Just a walkway to.
you can't drive on it, it's
Yeah.
just for, yeah, there's like a back way from Caraway to Lifetime that was approved.
Right.
But that's not vehicular. But the one between Trammell Crow, going down the main street and then turning and then going back through, which is where the old emergency access actually was. If you might remember from the site walk, we were looking down and you
Two-way
could.
traffic.
Yes, that one is completely.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's the one that we worked on.
Got to get the Wegmans.
Yes, exactly. So with that, I'd like to bring up Alan Ward from Sasaki, who will take you through a couple of minutes of some of the details. And then Stuart will give you an overview of the architecture, and then prepare as late as you want to be here.
Thank you, Seth. So I'll present an overview of the master plan as well as the landscape design. The multifamily residences are located on the western part of the site here in two, what we call the north quad and the south quad. They're framing courtyards. This is kind of a timeless planning principle to organize residents around the private spaces of courtyards. And there also are villas located off of this road we've been discussing. There are two clusters, some on the north here, right off of that road. A second group here, kind of wrapping around the existing mansion, which is right here. So the residential is mostly to the west, where the land was already disturbed by the previous hotel development. And then these villas kind of front the preserved open space to the east. Now, at the center of the plan, this sort of village-like plan, and at the heart of the plan, is the commons right here between the two quads. These are where the entries occur. There's also some retail here, which will be publicly accessible along that road. But there's also, quite importantly, a second heart at the mansion right here in the second phase. So that part is a little more relaxed. It's not quite as pure and geometric as kind of the center here. It's up the slope, incorporates the mansion as part of it, and that is added in the second phase. So now let me turn to the landscape design. And we approach this like a town planning project with the idea of making a range of distinctly different landscape spaces. So we start to the east, and you can see all this area, the existing photo. This is about 7 acres of preserved woodlands, and this will be enhanced with trails. We'll remove some of the invasive species. There'll be places to pause along those trails. So that gives you a place to kind of decompress in nature on this site and encourages walking. Then you get to the heart of the site in the middle here. It turns into a more open park-like landscape. This is where you can have some events for residents, some recreation. It also incorporates the amphitheater right here that has been mentioned a couple times, works with the slope that leads up to the higher ground into the mansion. So that's kind of this transitional landscape space. And then in the center is the commons, where it's more geometrically ordered, flat lawns, rectangular spaces, a bosque of trees. This is kind of the symbolic heart where people come together. This is where you have some of the shared amenities, recreation, meeting places, social spaces. That space, along with the mansion, then become the heart of the community around which the residents are focused. Let's go to the next slide. So this phasing issue, which has been mentioned, is shown in this red line right here. So that allows the commons to be part of the first phase with the north quad. So you get a kind of a sense of completion. So those amenities and the commons are with the initial phase along this road. This is kind of the front door arrival, and then on the western side is kind of this back of house, you might say, entry to the parking garages and service. This is a diagram of that vehicular circulation. This new connector from West Red Oak Lane with the new roundabout here on the south. And then we generally follow existing roads and then through the center of the site and then up makes a connection to Wegmans. So this is where you would arrive at each of these quads, where you make connections to each of the villa areas. And then once again, on the west side, you have the entrance to the parking garages. And then there is an extensive network of trails and paths and sidewalks. So in addition to that connection along the road with sidewalks to Wegmans, there also are more informal trails, soft surfaces through the existing woodlands here. Those would be rather small scale paths like you would see in a kind of natural context. And it transitions to a park-like setting here, connects to the amphitheater, up to the mansion house here, connecting the villas as well. And then in the center, in the commons, links into these private courtyards on either side. You have the entries and arrival. You have a more formalized system of paths in that zone. So when you add it together, it gives residents a great range of opportunities. It appeals to kind of the most popular recreational form in the country, which is walking. You can take multiple paths within the site, but also then it makes these connections beyond the site to Wegmans and to the south as well. So that is a very brief overview of the master plan, a little bit about the landscape. And now Stuart Lax will give you an overview of the architectural vision that fits within this framework of a master plan.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, members of the board. Pleasure again to be back here before you. We'll go, the architectural visioning. What we brought here tonight are really just some very preliminary renderings as we work through the facade treatments. We will present the designs and the architecture in far greater detail as we go through the site planning process. Really just want to talk about that the architectural character is formed by the existing mansion, which I really should put in for my predecessor. It's John Carr, the architect of the Red Oak Mansion. Give credit where credit is due. The architectural character will be formed by the architecture of the mansion itself and some of the other Tudor and arts and crafts style grand mansions and estates that we find here in Westchester. Our objective has been stated both by Andy and by Alan, is to create a sense of community within the greater Teardrop neighborhood. We've got a variety of spaces, as Alan has talked about, both within landscape spaces, within the site and the landforms, and then within the building itself, as we try to break down the scale of the buildings into a smaller, more manageable scale for the residents. There are a variety of scales of spaces and apartments to give choice. It's a mix of 2, 3, and 6-story buildings that will be constructed in 2 phases. What I should point out, see it more in the site plan, most of the parking is within garages under the buildings, very little surface parking, very little exposed parking. And then, we've talked about the landscape features and the amenities, and there'll be a selection of gathering spaces for the residents at the courtyards within the residential buildings, at the commons and the mansion. And each offering will have a constellation of vibrant social and recreational opportunities. meeting rooms, yogas, community kitchens, things to entice and support year-round enjoyment, healthy living, and family fun. And I just want to touch on, finally, we do intend to incorporate a multiple range of sustainability strategies within the buildings, between design and materials and systems and construction. One example of this is obviously the reuse of the mansion building. It's there as rather than tear it down and provide a new facility for those functions, we're going to reuse the existing building. So, thank you. Back to Seth.
Thank you. So just to wrap up, and we do appreciate you giving us time at the end of a long meeting. For this evening, we're asking the board to kick off the seeker process by declaring yourselves lead agency under seeker. We'd also like to propose a site walk on October 19th, which is a Wednesday, the traditional site walk day, and I know it's a day that works for the chairman, I believe works for Pat as well. And we're trying to give enough time so everyone can, make sure it works for their schedules, hopefully.
Yeah, that's good.
So you cancel your vacation, Marcia.
Luncheon will be served.
Well, but what I wanted to add, if anyone can't make it that day, we're happy to take you out at your convenience. It's, sidewalks are important at every site, but particularly, I think a site like this one where you're creating something new and using something old and there's some woods, we can mark out, as we always do, kind of some of the major landmarks of what will, what is and what could be.
Did you have someone who could do it on a weekend, because then I'm not so rushed and pressured to go to work?
Sure, I think
Much better for me.
we'll accommodate whatever schedules, if we have to do one on a weekday and one on a weekend, we're certainly happy to do that. This is going to be not a 2-month process, it's a seeker process. We want to get it done before the winter, certainly, if we can. So we can just coordinate that through road like we always do. And if there's, if we need to
I
do a
walk
second.
around in the winter as long as it's light.
Yeah, but happy to do a second weekend day to make sure all the board members have an opportunity to see the site in a non-rushed, thoughtful kind of way.
The 19th is great for me.
I mean, usually we kind of do midday, I know, because I
Yeah.
think you'll probably have agenda review in the afternoon, but
Do it in the morning. Yeah, I'd rather do it in the morning.
whatever is convenient for the board.
Yeah, Seth, so we'll coordinate internally and we'll get back to
Yeah,
you.
we have a few weeks, especially since this meeting's a little bit earlier, we have some time, so, Ro, will just let us know, and then as far as the weekend, whatever works, for whoever can't make it on the 19th. And then finally, as you always do, we assume you'll be hiring some outside consultants. We actually sort of pre-funded the escrow account since Pat has been more than generous with his time this summer, although we didn't bother him on his vacation at the end of August. But we assumed Beth Evans would be involved, and she's already been coordinating with our wetland consultant, mobility, engineering, the usual. I don't know if that's a formal motion, but
It need not be at this point, second.
I mentioned it, just, it's one of my items on my list. And that is our presentation. I think it may have been slightly over 30 minutes, but I apologize. But our whole team is here. We know it's a lot of information, but if there's any initial questions, we're happy to answer those tonight or anytime as we delve into the seeker process.
I know that Windward has been very concerned about, stormwater runoff. What are the, preliminary thoughts as to that? That sounds great that you already had a meeting with them.
So I don't know, Leonard or Andy, I know Leonard, you've been talking to them, but
We've been in touch with Windward since March. One of the interesting facts that we obtained is that the watershed is over 300 acres. And that our property only contributes less than 2% water to that whole story. So that's a counterintuitive argument that we want to make sure, and the Windward people understand that. Andy and DTS have been in touch with their engineers. And I believe, based upon Monday's parent Zoom meeting, is a very collegial and collaborative effort. Important to them is mobility. We talked about the red light because they do have backup from the schools. And as important is the construction management report, which will detail exactly how things will happen from 6 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m., particularly when there's a drop-off and pick-up. We're very sensitive to that, we know they are. So I think it'll be a very collaborative effort.
That would be great. You know, it's an extremely well-loved school, an important school.
Absolutely.
It's an extremely important school to people.
They do amazing work.
They're amazing.
My daughters, both of them have MBAs in special ed.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm very sensitive to that, so
Well-
I appreciate that.
Good. I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
Very ambitious project. Terrific.
Thus it begins. We have a motion to declare lead agency.
I will make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Purchase people do this.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We very much appreciate the time. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I'm curious about who suggested the pickleball courts. You didn't mention them.
I'm on board.
Yeah, I mean, it's. and
I don't
saw the
think
New
you
York-
can propose something in America right now
No,
without
you saw the New York
pickleball.
Times article, right? I mean, it's
It
just
is like the hot sport.
crazy. I know, forget
So now,
about,
if you had a pickle restaurant there, I'd be more excited.
forget about Lifetime.
My mom lives in the 55 and over in Florida. It's like, you have to make a reservation to play pickleball.
Yeah, I mean, but that's great,
nuts.
right? That's super great.
Yeah.
It's great everybody's saying
She
that.
took up bocce. My mother is like the most unathletic person. She calls me one day.
Say again? Do an executive session
Bocce.
for 2 minutes?
You're not gonna have
Yeah,
enough
then-
pickleball courts there.
So-
You're gonna, I hate to say that. Sorry.
Very much, folks.
Can I get a motion to do an executive session, please, on the subject of litigation?
Yes, I'll make a motion.
Second, please. Okay.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Still couldn't get it in there, Jay.